Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and I'm here with the dictionary definition of hybrid. But now, it's sexy. I've been spending the day here in Texas with the new Toyota Prius, and because I'm at an event, the format's gonna look a little bit different. We're gonna do a little bit more POV style for the highlights and the lowlights, and then we're gonna go for another POV drive behind the wheel. But this Prius is here to kind of make an argument against things like EVs with more style, more power, and more efficiency. So, is a hybrid Prius really what you want to get over an EV? That's what we're going to find out today. There's a lot to love here. We're going to talk about the best and the rest, starting with the rest. The first thing that's a little bit of a negative is the fact that the car is a lot more expensive this year than it was last year. But I mean, look at it. You have so much more style, you've got more power, more fuel economy, and you're getting a lot more car overall. But if you are just looking from a financial and billing perspective, yes, this car is going to be a lot more money than it was last year. Number two, we're going to talk about a kind of vague concept, but there's a bit of cringe on the car. So you have things like hybrid reborn here, and then when we go to the panoramic roof, oh, it's closed, but up there you can see, hashtag panoramic roof. And then under here, you have hashtag hidden compartment. And in the trunk, it doesn't end there. You've got hybrid reborn again. So there's a little bit of element of cringe. To me personally, I find it more funny than anything, but there are some things around the body. And then number three, we'll talk about more when we're actually behind the wheel driving, but the drive itself is kind of lackluster. It does have more power and more performance, but it's not like it's exciting. You still get like a buzzy sensation and sound from the engine when it kicks in, and it still is kind of loud in the cabin, and we'll talk more about this issue in a minute. And next we'll talk about the trunk. Now this is an XLE, so we're not gonna have the power trunk, but if you get a limited, you will have a power tailgate, which is nice. And the trunk is still fairly big, but it is smaller than it was last year. I mean, I don't know whose bag of body parts this is, but you can see, you can really only fit like 1, 2, maybe 2.5, 3 bags of body parts in here. So that's probably not even a full corpse. And then if you want to get the Prius Prime, the plug-in, you're gonna get even a little bit less cargo space than this. You do have a tiny amount of some underfloor storage, but objectively, it is smaller than last year, but it's still a pretty practical and decent sized trunk. And the next point I only include because I've gotten a bunch of comments lately about spare tires, which to me is a little bit odd, but anyway, the LE trim is the only trim you're going to be able to get a spare tire on your Prius. The rest of them are going to come with fix-a-flat kits. So if you want a spare tire, get the LE or don't get a Prius. And my next point is something you'll be familiar with if you watched my BZ4X video, and it's the cockpit. You'll notice that you have the same steering wheel as the BZ4X and the same can't decide what it is, identity confused head-up display / gauge cluster. So for me, this is where I sit. You see what I can't see? Not a good design. And lastly, I want to talk about rear seats. So you have kind of a window area mounted door handle that reminds me of the last generation HRV and the CHR. But we get in here and we can see that I actually have a lot more space in here than I did last year, at least in terms of legroom, which is great. You can get heated seats back here. You do still have a bit of a drivetrain tunnel here. You got single map pocket, but you don't have air conditioning vents back here. You do get 2 USB-Cs, but the problem with the back seat here is I'm 6'1", so Prius is for short kings only, and queens. Oh, and you also get a pano roof back here. Nice. There's a lot of good things going on with this new Prius, so let's talk about that. First is, look at it. It's hot now. I mean, this thing is certified sexy. We'll talk about the face first. Now, it has kind of a conventional Prius shape to the face, but you do have the more BZ4X style running lights. Now, these are really crisp and really cool, but this flare specifically was in the BZ4X, and I kind of liked it. It was an interesting design element. Now, you don't have a lot of cooling, but you do have some in your lower fascia here with kind of a contrasted gray outline for your lower grille, and a little bit here, and then some radar detectors as well. But as we come around the side, let's take a look. We've got the upgraded wheels, which are trim specific, and it's surrounded by a gloss black wheel arch, which you don't see that often, which is very cool. And then we look around down the side of the body, and it is just kind of clean. There's not a lot of angles or grooves or anything. This is maximizing aerodynamic efficiency. You can see that really aggressive rake to the steering wheel as well. Down here on the front fender, you have your all-wheel drive badge, but look at the way that it cuts in right about the rear rear wheel. This is some serious aero stuff going on. Black wing mirror, black window treatments. You have a $1,000 split pano roof. Again, the split is kind of for structural rigidity and rollover issues, so that's $1,000 bucks. But let's take a look. I mean, it kind of looks like every computer mouse I've ever owned, but like in a hot way. And then in the rear, we have a slightly bulged fender. We talked about kind of the digi release rear door, and then this is your mechanical release, so you push that if the battery's ever dead. Gas cap, and then very subtle, you'll notice that you don't have the split rear tailgate. Another thing you don't have, windshield wiper in the rear. Kind of annoying. You do have a full width LED tail bar though, which is very nice. You've got Prius spelled out back here. You've got your trim and hybrid electric vehicle. Of course, no exhaust cutouts, but yeah, it's a really, really handsome car now. And number 3, I want to talk about efficiency. Now, it depends on what you spec. So if you get all-wheel drive and the big wheels like you have here, you'll get 50 mpg combined. That's the worst fuel economy you can get on a Prius, which is pretty dang good. If you go for the smaller wheels and front-wheel drive, that'll go up to about 57 mpg. And I haven't driven the Prius Prime, but with the plug-in, you're going to get close to 40 miles of fully electric range, so that's pretty good. And then I want to talk about power specifically. You have a bigger 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with your electric motors front and rear. This is E all-wheel drive. And you're going to get about 196 horsepower and 152 pound-feet of torque. And then your 0 to 60 figure drops from close to 10 seconds where it was last year to 6.7. I mean, that is a huge delta in terms of performance. This is a much faster car than it was last year. And again, you're still getting all of this with 50 mpg, or with the smaller wheels, you'll sacrifice a little bit more performance if you go front wheel drive, but you will get 57 mpg. Again, if you want the most performance oriented one, you'll wait for the Prius Prime and that plug-in power. And the next thing that I want to talk about is the interior and technology. This is a much more thoroughly modern vehicle. You do have this fully digital instrument cluster, even if it is located in a terrible position. You've got Toyota's great safety sense system for your adaptive cruise and lane keep and that sort of thing. You've got their new infotainment screen, which is running the new software, so you get wireless CarPlay, you get over-the-air updates, dual Bluetooth, and a lot of great features. You've got reverse camera, and on some you can get a 360 camera. You've got heated seats, you can get cooled seats. You've got wireless charger, and you've just got a nice amount of features in here. Oh, and on some trims, you can get a digital rear view mirror, which is nice now that you don't have the split tailgate window. And then I want to talk about some of the luxury features themselves that you get here. This is a really well-equipped Prius. Like I said, you can get heated and cooled seats, not in this XLE trim, you just get heated, but if you go up to the Limited, you can get heated and cooled seats, you can get a heated steering wheel, and then you also get this really nice subtle ambient light that goes across the dash. You've got this really interesting, it's not textured, but it adds a nice little look and detail to the cabin. And then you've got this dual pano roof, which is just nice. And then of course, the same shifter out of a Lexus LC and a lot of other Toyotas now. Pretty good though. Prius. I never feel more manly than when I'm in a Prius. You'd think I would say that ironically, but now in this new Prius with almost 200 horsepower, look at this. Look at that. Okay, and then just behind the wheel of the Prius, we're gonna go for a bit of a drive. Sport mode, foot down. 60. You know, I drove a lot of cars today, and I gotta be honest, I'm pretty sure that this Prius is faster than that Subaru Crosstrek that I drove earlier today. One thing that you'll notice is that it's super loud in here. And that's because, well, one, there's not a lot of sound deadening on this thing, and that's to keep weight down, that's to keep cost down, and that sort of thing. But also, this is probably the worst road in the world. It's just loud, it's super rough. So it's kind of inescapable. But the thing that I want to talk about here is just the massive leap that they've taken in terms of power and performance and just like the spicy, the picante factor that you get here. Now this is the bigger 2-liter turbo, or 2-liter, not turbo, but 2-liter engine, and then it makes 196 horsepower and 152 pound-feet of torque. You still have like an EV mode or an EV button on your normal non-plug-in. And then of course your Prius Prime will bring more power, more torque, more fully dedicated EV range, close to 40 MP or 40 miles is what I'm hearing. Of course I haven't driven that just yet, but no, this gets difficult because you start to assess this thing against other EVs out there. And EVs are generally more expensive, but to me right now, I could go and buy, and this is going to be a completely out-of-pocket comparison, so take this with a grain of salt, but like, if I go on Auto Tempest right now and I look for a Model 3 Performance, I can spend less money on like a 2019 Model 3 Performance than I would spend on a new Prius. Now granted, we're talking used versus, you know, new, and then there's that whole, you know, Tesla is garbage, Toyota's super reliable thing. So again, take that with a pinch of salt, but I think what Toyota's done here is they're trying to make the Prius more compelling. They have hybrids for basically everything in their lineup. So the Prius, it kind of battles with the Corolla hybrid and the Camry hybrid. It's kind of a tweener. You get more space in this Prius than you would in a Corolla hybrid, but less than you would get in a Camry hybrid. But the thing that you're getting here is more power. This thing looks fantastic, and you know it's going to be, you know, reliable, bulletproof. This is the 4th generation of Toyota's hybrid Synergy drive, and you're getting a lot more car here. You have a much more modern infotainment system. The dash looks way more expensive than it has in the past. It's really good. So if you've had a Prius before and you like the Prius brand, you're gonna love this, because this is a very complete, very comprehensive, and very good vehicle. It's when you're coming from, you know, something else, something bigger, like a RAV4 hybrid, you know, does a Prius make sense? It's going to be a smaller trunk. You are getting better fuel economy, of course, but, you know, you have to make some comparisons that way. But I won't get too deep into it here. This is a very good car, so I think let's get into the final thoughts. So that's the best and the rest of the new Toyota Prius. I know from a numbers standpoint, I came up with more negatives than I came up with positives for this video, but some of those things are nitpicks, some of those are specific to me, and some of those are just, oh, well, the trunk is a little bit smaller than it was last year. It's still a good thing, but we have to put it in one bucket or the other. Overall, I really, really like this new Prius. It's got great style, it's got a lot more power, it's got a lot more sex appeal, and yeah, if you're not ready for an EV, this is pretty good.